Okay, we're moving it to the front now. And again, what we need to do is connect both the front calipers together into one line and bring it to the back.
And there's several ways you can do that.
And we both do it different ways.
Exactly.
I take mine down the one side, bring it around, and I make a T right here and put it together. And Bob generally,
I run it down this line and I put a T up here and cross it. And either way is right. It's personal preference, what you think looks better than the other way. And also, if you run them straight when you're doing the lines, both sides and down and around, if you're not proficient in building and bending lines, you can make it look a little sometimes rough.
right.
You know, so if you're a novice or, you know, just getting started in street riding, keep it simple. Run straight lines as much as you can. When you bend enough lines in that where you can do nice crisp bends, equal, where they look really good, then start doing that. But if it's your first one, keep it as straight as you can.
Well, you've judged a lot of shows in your life, and that's probably one of the things that you're going to look at when you go under a car.
Right.
Is how crisp and how clean all the bends are.
Exactly.
But the foundation, the basics is that you got to make sure that your lines aren't leaking and that your brakes work.
Right.
So if your lines aren't leaking and your brakes work, it's good to go.
Well, it is, unless you've not fastened them properly and a brake line is hanging down, or on a front flexible line where when you're turning, if you've got too much there that can hang on to something, like we've seen a beautiful bucket at one of the car shows, and the top side was beautiful. I mean beautiful. But when we looked under it, the way the gentleman had run his brake lines were really bad, and he had them looped where if he, and here in Arkansas you can either hit a possum or armadillo in the road.
Yep.
He would have hit an armadillo or a possum, he'd have ripped his brake line off and it'd have been all over.
Well, Marty, it looks like Bob's not going to let me duct tape any of your brake lines on, so that's probably a good thing. Well, when we do a few FAQs, we got some frequently asked questions, and we'll see if we can answer them. Neither one of us are brake experts, but we both know how they work anyway.
Well, I think on a few of them we've kind of answered them so far, but let's go over here and see. Here we are again, this portion of the show where we got to put these on so we can see what we're doing.
Okay, first question, do I need a residual valve?
Well,
Careful, I sell residual valves, so we need to...
You want to show them what a residual valve is?
Okay.
Did I pronounce it right that
residual.
time?
I got a 2 pounds per square inch one.
And I have a 10 pound.
Okay.
And they're all the same color coded. A red one is a 10 pound, the blue is a 2 pound.
How did all them old cars work for so many years without a residual valve?
Well, the only thing that was different between then and now, because then in '39, when the brakes started hydraulic fluid and that, the brake pedals and master cylinders were below the floor on them cars. What it is, I believe, nowadays is because of the disc brakes give you 60% more up front than in the rear, and I believe that's why they went to that, so that you could maintain the proper pressure.
So the answer is, do I need one? My answer is I've used them and I've not used them on the same style of car, and it works the same either way. What it does is it lets the pressure go one way, but it only lets so much back out. So it keeps pressure on your front caliper, your rear, and it doesn't let it bleed back into your master cylinder if your master cylinder is below the caliper. So that is the purpose. You could say it's overkill, but maybe it's not. It could be death if you don't have brakes. So
yeah.
Yes, I would say go ahead, spend the 10 bucks, put them in.
Yes.
Okay. My brakes are spongy. How do I fix it?
Well, there's several causes.
My first guess would be you got air in the lines.
Yes. And you want to tell the people how to get the air out of their lines?
We can do that. I have a caliper here. And if we can get a close-up on this, there's a bleeder valve on your caliper. And there's the same on the wheel cylinder and a drum brake setup.
Okay, point out, the fact is, you always want your bleeder to the top, because you can install these upside down.
This is true. I think most of them say left and right on them though.
Well, some people can't.
Oh, this one has an R on it, but don't.
Right, because I have got cars into the shop where they was telling me it wasn't working right, and they're switched right to left and they will work, but you need your bleeder up at the top.
I remember we said that the way it all works is it pushes fluid, and it's pushing fluid into the caliper, and there's a piston here. And what it'll do is it'll push this piston out, and then it pushes the brake pad against the rotor, and then the other side is stationary, and it just squeezes the whole thing to it then.
And when your brakes are not applied, the piston will come back in and let your rotor rotate again.
So when you pump up your brakes, you pump it 2 or 3 or 4 times, it puts pressure into the brake line. But you've got air, and now air will compress where hydraulic fluid does not compress. And when you open this valve, keeping your foot on the brake, it'll let that air out. Now make sure you close the valve before you take your foot off the brake, or you're just going to suck air into it.
Right.
Now there's another way. This is the way that I use. Now they got a fancy schmancy tool here too. This puts a vacuum. You pump it, and it doesn't come apart, but as you pump it, it puts a vacuum on the tube here. So it keeps sucking air out, and any extra fluid will go into the thing. So once you loosen that, put this over your bleeder valve and just keep pumping till it sucks all the air out.
Another tool they have, if you do a lot of brakes in that, they have one that goes on your master cylinder on top of the lid. You put a little bit of pressure, and it puts pressure through the line, and one man can bleed all his brakes. But that's if you do a lot of them.
Well, my favorite way, I take a quart of brake fluid, I take a tube, I stick the tube into the brake fluid, make sure it's in the fluid, I open my bleeder valve, I stick the tube on it, it's open, I go in the car and I keep pumping that brake until no more bubbles are coming out. Because what's happening is blowing the air out, but when it sucks back up, it's sucking fluid back up in it.
Exactly.
So you just keep pumping, pumping, pumping until you're not hearing no bubbles blowing in here. And really, for the price of a tube, it works every bit as good as this.
Exactly.
And it doesn't require 2 people pumping loose and tight and pump loose tight, pump
Right.
loose tight. So again,
Unless you want to get your wife involved and have her
well, there
inside
yeah,
pumping that brake pedal up.
it might be a good thing, or it might not be a good thing.
Is there a certain way you should go about bleeding your brakes? Like starting on the farthest away and...
Was that like a leading question there?
Well, yeah, you know.
That sounds like...
You know, see, me and you can laugh about this
Okay.
stuff because we've done it for so many years. But there's a lot of people that really don't know the proper way to do things.
Okay.
And it saves you phone time because they're calling you and asking you. So if maybe this little video here will help somebody.
There we go. Yeah, start at the farthest and keep working it in until, and then the other, do your rears, do your fronts, and then do not forget to bleed your master cylinder before you even start.
Bench bleed it.
Bench bleed it.
Right.
And, okay, when you bench bleed your master cylinder, just make sure fluid's in there. And you make yourself a couple lines, screw them in, and then just loop it over and keep it in the fluid. And again, when you pump it, air will come out, suck fluid. Keep doing that until the bubbles are not coming out no more and your master cylinder's bled.
Show them where you got to pump it.
Oh, you pump it, yeah. Well, I try to put it on the car. That way it's easier to do with the pedal. Or you
Right.
can put it on a vise and push the plunger in. And again, what's happening here, this plunger is creating the pressure to go through the lines. So as you push the plunger in, it's got to displace that hydraulic fluid, and it pushes it down the line. And where it pushes it to is into this cylinder here, and it pushes that cylinder out. So when it comes back, then it comes back into the master cylinder through like a one-way valve here.